on Abu Jen, the CDS CHAM and the National Security Advisor, Abu Jen. I don't want to reduce it to that alone, because I have seen a lot of conversations going on and people sharing their opinions, especially on replacement of CDS CHAM suggestions and other counter suggestions. And I think these are all healthy and very important. That's why I see need to put time to come and have a live program and to discuss some of our opinions based on our experience and expertise in the field of national security, especially in Gambian matters. And it's quite evident that we have a serious problem. And most people would reduce it to an individual, or Cham is a bad person, or who was better among them, or Abu Jeng is a bad person, and so on and so forth. But if we reduce it to that, we are not doing justice to what is happening. I know it's more an individual, it's a systematic failure, and it needs urgent addressing. And to be quite frank, the administration at present doesn't have what it takes to reform the situation. This is another need for politicians to think about, that we should put our acts together to start and bring about change. And this administration has to be retired in December and made so we constitute a government that can handle the situation, because this is a very serious crisis. And the case of the exposing CDS CHAM and Abu Jen, actually that's been happening. I did programs, other people did programs. Nothing new came out. The only thing that gave this gravitas is someone who was part of it came out and spoke about it, and social media amplified it. This is the only reason that what leads to CDS CHAM being forced to retire, and still we see Abu Jen is still hanging in there because they're trying to manage and public opinion to go away. Then the serious issues are not being dealt with, and they are managing it and move ahead. But just to illustrate the seriousness of the matter, this is his Chief of Defense Staff, who happened to have all these crimes alleged, and these are the recent ones. We are not talking about the historic ones since he came back to this position or came back to the armed forces. We are not talking about the history, we're just talking about the recent ones. And we have seen how grave they are. We go into it. But again, we have another individual who serves as the National Security Advisor to the President, to the government, who is in an equal controversy, involvement with organized crime. If we think about this, that when critical matters happens, these are the people that would be at the forefront with the president, with cabinet, the war cabinet, to decide how things are going to be dealt with. These are people with no integrity. These are people that show incompetence. And these are people who are actually conflicted. Now look at the other scenario. If Cham case was to be discussed in his absence, who else would be on the table? The National Security Advisor will be on the table. But likely that the National Security Advisor, if we go according to structure, would be the last person, in fact, or should be the last person to have the ears of the president. Now, you have a defected CDS. Now you have a defected National Security Advisor, and you are relying on a defected National Security Advisor who is conflicted to advise the president. But again, as I said, it's not going to be about these two people, because there are so many other CDS charms and abogens within the system. The system is built on corruption. The system is built on incompetency. It's how it operates. As they say, the fish rots from the head. This is why I already put my argument that this is not a government that is going to take care of this. We should take this as a blessing and keep the momentum and bring about change in December, and make sure too we put in a better, more competent authority in charge so that these reforms can be effected. What is this all about? Will come down to bad governance. Bad governance. And I will give you a quick example. Leadership matters. When Donald Trump came back second time, have we not witnessed the damage he have done to America's national security? He have exposed the entire weakness of the American democratic system, but the entire weakness of the American administration of governance, by interfering with the institutions, the armed forces, and every other sector, justice and every other sector that matters to make sure the country is governed well. Now he has exposed the weaknesses due to what? His leadership. Because of his leadership. And think about that a minute. If that can happen in a country like America, where we all look at and say, oh, they have more mature institutions, more independent institutions, or they have democracy and so forth, or they have, and so on. I'm not going to say they have more, aware people. But leader of this world, whatever you call them, if it can happen there, if you look at our history, our young history, especially from the dictatorship, then you'll understand where we are today. That's why I said it's about bad governance. The army alone as an institution, the military alone as an institution cannot function in isolation when you have almost everything else governed wrong. No institution in the country can be looked at to say that it's performing well. It can't. It's part of a system. It's run from the cabinet. It matters. And again, remember governance. It's about mindsets, environment it creates. With the poor mindset and environment created, tribalism, politicization of institutions, and so on and so forth, what do you expect? If you look at people's recommendations, I can tell you three things. People will recommend, oh, this person to be CDS. Some of them are doing it on tribal lines. Yeah, it's not based on knowledge. No. Sentiments, emotions, and reinforced by tribal affiliation. Others are doing it on political. Others are doing it on political lines, thinking, oh, this person would represent my political interests, the party they support, whether the APRC or the UDP or other parties that would likely probably to come into government, who they would want to work with, because that's already engineered in our mindsets. That's why I said governance matters. A reform administration would have dealt with all these issues, but it failed. Thirdly, others are just innocent. They are making recommendations based on ignorance because they don't know better. For them, they look at who they think looks more appealing to be called a CDS or whatever. I mean, they look at someone to thinking that that's what makes a CDS. It takes far more than that. This is not about the individual. Yes, we are going to hold them accountable, but it's about the system. It's about bad governance. It's about poor governance. And I give you a lesson here. I've just given an example of America by Trump administration coming in, and just we have witnessed all that we see today, and the weaknesses of American national security is out there. They can't, but let's look at government history, political history. If you guys would understand that most of the crime committed by, if you want to use alleged, I know they are not alleged, they are crimes committed by CDS charm, it's not new. It was committed in the First Republic, and it was what led to, I will not say it was, yes, the bad governance actually led to the 1994 coup. Bad governance led to the 1994 coup. But I'll dissect it a little further down to institution. Bad governance spreads. It doesn't spare. If you look at the history of it, the late 80s, early 90s, what was happening? The allegations of corruptions, the cooperative union completely bankrupted, and people who were responsible, Sheikh Sabali and others, were maintained in governance, and in fact promoted. The likes of Bibi Dabo were actually fought because of what? They did not represent what the government was at that time. Series of institutions went bankrupt. Some of the privatizations were held wrongly. The customs, we used to wake up to hear, oh, bombshell at customs, 10 senior custom officers laid off. Laid off. No investigations, no prosecution. And if you go down their surnames, you will find who they are related to within the system. Nothing comes out of it. I'm not saying everything was bad, but journalists, people like Asantix, became victims for exposing the corruption. The overstaying of Jawara in governance to the point that he was no more effective politically. He was no more in control, because within the PPP they were fighting in order to determine the future leaders, or to keep him there. Hence they cannot determine the person they want to replace him, because the person they want to replace him would guarantee the status quo they are living in. I keep saying this debate, if Jawara have left in 92 and Bibi Dabo or any other competent person takes over, this coup would not have happened, because there would have been a shift. This is what I hope, a shift, and people will be a little more patient on others. But where was more critical? Institutions, as I said, there are almost every institution, but the military. Let's look at this. Every institution is critical. Every institution. But if we look at the impact of their criticality Their impact of their criticality tells you something. Now, if you have a failed healthcare system, we know it affects life directly, life loss directly. We know that. If you have a failed financial system, it leads to life and orders, but it does not reflect directly. People don't see it directly, but even if you are more critical, you say it was. Because criminality and orders and orders. But one thing about the military or security is it impacts on people's existence. Change of regime. That's what it does. When they come out, when the army fail to function, security fail to function, it's destabilization of society as we know it. Other sectors or institutions might fail and will take longer to coexist, to try to reform it, to fix it, sustain it, whatever it is. But the minute it gets to the nucleus of security, it's hell break loose. That government or that country will descend to civil war, or that country governance will be changed. As I said, taking soldiers to work at the senior commander's property, it's not new. It was happening in the First Republic. I'm not saying it's right. That's why we failed. The reforms should have picked that up. The senior commanders taking rations to their family, it's not new. Senior commanders playing nepotism, bringing their in-laws, bringing their because at that time they don't bring their children, they bring their in-laws and cousins and nephews and put them over orders. Or the more qualified or people who should have been given the priority are denied due to lack of representation in the systems. We have seen a case where a soldier who was already awarded to go for a military course in America was disqualified and in fact falsely accused of being HIV positive, which was a lie. Who replaced? The brother of a girlfriend of one of the senior officers. The other one was a brother to the wife of a senior officer. We have seen all that. But that is what builds the grievances. We heard about the water chew and all the other stuff that the soldiers made, the grievance they made, and others and others. We learned about the issue about allowances not paid, or welfare of soldiers were not taken care of, coming from economic operations and so on and so forth. It happened in the First Republic, and where did it lead us to 1994? But it became worse in the dictatorship. This is why we were calling for reforms after the dictatorship. Leadership matters. That's one, as I said, this is the failure of the so-called transition. We did not have a transition. Before the TRRC, I was, and many of my friends or people I discussed with, were completely against a TRRC. Because it was not going to lead to justice, mainly, but it was not going to lead to reconciliation. It was not going to lead to the truth. It was not going to lead to people be compensated reparation. How do we know that? Again, take your pick. Where have it been successful? Because world leaders who subscribe to this initiative of TRRC would champion it. Do you know that the TRRC or the TRRC has been championed in other countries. The Gambian TRR is championed in other countries as a success. But we Gambians impacted, no, it's a lie. But it's branded. It's a branding. Just as the TRRC in South Africa. We all know it's a lie. Look at how black South Africans are behaving because of it's the failure of that transition. What they went through. If they could behave that way, tells you the failure of governance. It's just a continuity of the apartheid regime. Just like a continuity of a dictatorship. Masqueraded as a democracy. Tell me, anyway, where a commission of inquiry have ever yielded anything. In America, go and look at all the commissions of inquiry, nothing. Go and do your research. Come to the United Kingdom, nothing. We have so many of them. It's a way of the administration taking control and managing the situation for an outcome they want. To bury the facts, whitewash, and all other equally, control the momentum to what they want. It will never, the Iraq War, the Black Sunday, look at the Hillsborough, so many. The Thames Valley accident, so many of it. Even the latest ones, nothing absolutely. What I advocated was justice to be served. Gambia was not a Rwanda. Gambia was not a South Africa. Gambia was not a Sierra Leone. Gambia was not any of the other countries. Crimes committed, we all know each other. There's nothing that came out new apart from some of the lies being put to the TRRC and being glorified and people being called heroes. Because there's so many lies that came in. Because you don't get facts. You don't have truth from commissions. You have truth from justice. Complete failure. Justice. Cases could have been investigated. The crimes that committed were committed by Gambians and they went through processes that were very evident. It's easy to find the evidence and get the people responsible for these crimes. We would have how many people? Put them through justice. Then we would have justice then. An inquiry could have been set up to look at the cause. Why did we have the 1994 coup? And we have investigated from independence for that date what went wrong. Then we will look at the politics of it, the social of it, and the governance of it. We could have found out where it all went wrong. But that was because that aspect was not the scope of investigations was just very minimal. The people who were most responsible in governance, the then former vice presidents, Bibi Dabo and Sheikh Sabali are alive. They were never called to find out because they will tell you, oh, that's not the scope. If you don't find out what led to this, how can you fix it? And we would, from that report, we would have facts that would have led us to understand how to avoid them, and that would have come into the reforms of the forces. Yes, there are so many mistakes committed in the First Republic. There was so much of attitude, mindsets that came down from colonial. On all these things would have been addressed to know how to change the mindsets of our institutions, our service personnel, how to fight the corruptions and orders and orders. It never happened. Guess what? We haven't got the facts. Reparations, no way. Justice, not there. You all had the special prosecutor appointed. what transpired in the TRRC will not just be taken to the courts. There's so much work to be done again. What's the point of that? There's so much work to be done again in order to able to take them and these people to court. And I can tell you, at the momentum we have, these people could have been investigated, taken to the courts, and I can tell you that will be guaranteed, justice. We would have been guaranteed justice. But the minute you start to rebuild, interference from so-called international institutions, the Tony Blair foundations and others, with coming to with their ideologies and their own agendas, comes into it. Why do you think Edward Singate is still free? And where was Edward before he comes to the commission? There's so much that went on. Why do you think Senator Sabali was that arrogant? The special treatments is the victims that have that will continue to suffer. The system continues. That's why I said leadership matters. If you look at the backgrounds of the failure of the reforms, during the impasse, we learned about the state capture. They already, when Yahya Jammeh said, oh, 1 minute you saw green and the other minute you saw yellow. That was a fact. During the impasse, when Gambians were still figuring out how to get out of this peacefully, how to make sure Jammeh would not plunge that country down. The people who were with Jammeh were already taking over our government that we have just tried to seize democratically. When Barrow went to Dakar, some of our programs already we started talking about the future. I talked about reconciliation, what it means, what should be this thing. I talk against TRRC sort of. We talk about justice. We talk about reforms and so on and so forth. But we were having information then of what was happening in Dakar. Because some of us were seen as influential during the course of the struggle. We have penetrated the system. They were inviting us to come to Dakar. That's where things were happening. So what I can do on Dakar? I arranged for a flight. I arranged for, where is them? From there, the corridors, they're telling us things are happening here. This is where I got the information that Masani Kinte was to be reinstated as CDS. I said, no, hell no. I came out, made a program out of it. Some people went and gang up. Call me tribalist, because that's what they see for them. For them, it's about identifying the person for how they affiliate to the person. I made my objections. I did not go personally, nothing about his life or anything. I talked about what should happen. I did not say that he should not be reinstated. I said nobody should be reinstated. Nobody. This is a freeze. We have an opportunity right now. We have security guarantees. We have economic coming in with us. We need to diagnose, we need to review, and we need to reform. We need to ask these questions. What do we need? I'm not saying we're going to just go and disband the army. No. The genie was already outside the bottom. Whether we call it an army, whether what we call it, what do we need as a nation? What purpose this institution should serve? Who are the people to lead that institution? Because there's so much damage done by that institution, just as many other institutions. Just as you look at the medical area, the ethics, people who have led, and Yaya end up controlling and everything else, that it needed seasonal people with integrity to come out up there to reform the medical sector, especially in the services, the police and everything else. When I said this, I was asked, I said, what? The minute you start to reinstate, you have already opened the floodgates. How are you going to determine? People start to lobby to be reinstated. I said, we need regimentation. We don't need these generals. They don't exist. None of them, not one of them. You would say they incur the service time and experience and knowledge to become that general. It was Yaya pleases, Yaya creates. None of them. When you have a size of a brigade, you have a structure of a division. Lieutenant generals, God knows. An army less than 7,000 people. People becoming generals in 10 years of service, 15 years of service. Generals are time that you retire your service. Go and study. See, how armies were built after independence in Africa. And look at the case studies. Look at how Nigeria built their army. Help from India, Pakistan, and others. What failed? There's so much to learn from. When Masani Kinte came, I said it. Reforms are leadership-led. Reforms are about momentum. We have a momentum now. If we don't do it as soon as possible to put things together, as time goes on, we lose it. Everything comes back to normal. Leadership-led, if the person is compromised, he would not lead reforms. If the person is compromised in the sense of his interests, they will not lead reforms. Reforms are not led or spearheaded by people who are affected. We talked about all this. But all they see was, he's tribalist. That's why he didn't. At that minute, that was the first time. What I used to be called is a second-class citizen. But now, I just become a tribalist because I was against Masani Kinte's appointment. Not Masani Kinte's appointment, but in fact, the whole process of bringing people in. Just like that. I talked about a metrics being put in place. We talked about how things will be done. We don't just come on the air to talk and walk away. It happened. The floodgates get open. The reforms fail. Now, from when Masani Kinte came in, floodgates open. People, you see, I know, I will say this. There's an appearance of tribalism. There's an appearance of tribalism. There's in fact to the point of some people exercising, basing their decision on tribal loyalty. But ultimately, it's not about the tribe. It's about those people protecting an interest. I'll give you an example. Any of them you looked at and said they are tribalists, there are some people. You look at who they have around them. Because all those people are intermarried. They are interconnected. They are looking after their nephews, their cousins, and others and others. And other people within the system that allow them to benefit. That's what they do. If we're talking about corruption, let's just give you an example. What have Masani Kinte proved when he came in? He's absolutely corrupt as Cham. I made programs about that many times. Explain the same thing. So most of the things Cham have done. Most of the stuff that Cham have done. But even grander corruption he was part of. And latter part, those people who thought that Masani Kinte was their candidate after fell out with him, because Masani went and protected his interests. He stayed with Barrow to the extent of campaigning in elections for Barrow. Some of them came back, oh, sir, we are very sorry, we didn't see what you were saying. These people are not loyal to you. I give an example during how Masani Kinte was advantaged latter part in Gemma's government by the NIADG Marina, who was technically an uncle. The time he was army commander, that's when no, before he became an army commander, he was deputy army commander. He knew what Yaya Jammeh did to his uncle and others. He knew about all these crimes after his uncle went disappeared, and he knew that he was killed by Yaya Jammeh. He was promoted to army commander. You think that person, if you have integrity backbone, you kill my uncle and made me army commander? Yaya, no, they have nothing in them. They would dare not. He would have been victimized, but no. This is how it plays. He's a good Mandinka to put in place for Yaya to say, oh, they say I'm tribalist, but look at the Mandinka. There's a Mandinka there as my army commander. There's a Mandinka there as my deputy CDS. There's a Mandinka there as my CDS. Doesn't matter. The tribe of that person does not matter. It's the person. That's why I said we have to be very careful how we look at things. Let's not be fixated on that. Let's look at the character of these people. They don't represent our tribes. They represent their interests and their family. Or not even for a sensible person, they don't represent the interests of their family. But that's what they believe they're doing, because of wealth is everything to them. The consequences of it, they don't care. On their family in the future or on the nation, they don't care. Because they are empty inside. What happened? During his tenure, some of the action he takes, they are not tribalists. Some Jola officers became victims. But this is what happens in system change. The mistake was, as we said, the process were not very clear. The metrics were not known to the people. How did Ben Suwareh lose his job? How this person lose his job? How that person loses his job? This is where we argue that if it is constituted right, you have to have a structure. The constituted right. The committee known to Gambians, these are people of integrity. These are people of knowledge. And the operational system, this is how they're going to determine. They're going to ensure competency in the institution. Now, all these people would have gone through a process to determine. There's a metrics to score to tell whether they have the competency to be a general, a commander, or whatever you call it. In that report, nobody will say that it was because he's a Jola. Because if you do that competency test, you will find Fullers, Jolas, Mandinkas, Olof, and others. You get them based on the metrics. Nobody can play with that. Some of the decisions he's taken might be right, but it's easy to be seen because the ranks were senior ranks were overflowed, and still they are still overflowed with Jolas, Mandinka, Fullers, and others who have shouldn't have business to carry those songs. They just massage it. what was happening is, who do they fear? Who do they think have loyalty? It was not technically based on tribe, but it was that, and in that sense, you now start to see it as a tribal thing. Then you see certain Mandinka officers benefiting, and they are seen as ally, and some of them will portray themselves as ally to Masani Kinte, and you see now the tribal mindset started to build in. Instead of reforms, now we are seeing continuity of change of agents. Now the other things is, because of UDP was powerful in government, they are seen as UDP sympathizers. Some people will even portray themselves to be UDP sympathizers. Let me give you an example. King Koli, the so-called King Koli, who was loyal to Yaya Jammeh, who was everything, who even went to Yaya Jammeh's mom to say that, look, be my godmother, who committed this, who was discharged but brought back because of the relationship with Yaya Jammeh's mother. The minute the government came, he started to worship the politicians from the UDP intentionally, because he at that time believed that that's where the power is. Guess what? The minute it became very clear to him that no, power resides with Barrow, now guess what? He went and took Barrow's mom as his godmother now, and now loyal to these things and fanfare. So many people did that. Masane Kinte himself was seen as a UDP sympathizer, was seen as this. But I can tell you, Masane Kinte was always allied as a PDIS guy. I was in the army with him. When he came as a recruit, he would always have his foyer folded and behind the scenes. If you classify, he was one of the people seen as PDIS in the military. But at this time, he will be seen. But where did he end up? With Barrow and others. Through Jones and others and others. Now, it became seen as victimization of Jolas, favoring Mandinkas. The mindset have already started. You see, I'm just saying about the failure of reforms. What shifted? When UDP went out of government, people started to realign themselves, to define themselves. The MasterCard came out. An alliance of Fullers and Wolofs in the military, now seen against the Mandinkas and Jolas. And so, Jolas became kind of a little bit fluid. In certain ways, they still seen themselves as victims. As time went on, some of them settled to say, okay, I'm okay. Hence, I'm maintaining my job. And in fact, APRC is in government. I am okay. Now, I wrote reports on that. I covered programs on that. How sitting guys and do charms and Mama charms and others. And Barrow made sure Mandinka officers were marginalized in favor of Fullers and Wolofs. Jola officers were kind of these things, or some of them were reassured now because there's an APRC government. But if you go deep dive in the perceptions, I'm saying, listen to this, perceptions I emphasize. Perceptions. Because these are individuals, look, they don't represent their tribes. But the perception is, some Mandinkas officers and Jola officers are kind of on the same. And you know, if you go that deep dive into history, some people started to bring the historic perspective of relationships. Selectively as they want it to be seen. Because if you want to go deep down of our history, you'll find all of us coming from the same nucleus family. All of us. Fullers, Jolas, Sarotules, and all these people will be coming from the same place. But that's why I emphasize selectively. Depends what time time of history you want to look at that favors your narrative. Because they don't represent us, they don't represent our tribes. They just want to pay it well, to have benefits, and they don't care. They don't care. This continue. The added layer is politicization. Now, it was perception of UDP. Now, it's perception of NPP, APRC. You see, it's even getting worse now. You have APRC, NPP. Wall of Fullers and Trumpet of Jolas. You see the crisis we let ourselves in. We didn't find ourselves, we let ourselves in. Because from the initial time, from the beginning we said, let's reform. Let's reform. They said no. People were fighting for their champions. Those champions who, look, they will love the people they want to love. They marry where they want to marry. They will marry a Fuller, Jola, or all of, because they feel attractive, or probably even that family. That they marry into a family that will make them better off, or seen differently. Yes. Go and look at the history. When Yahya Jammeh came in, after many of the people that were, look at where they went and married. They didn't even marry their cousins. And most of those people, if they did not have those positions, if they would have a wife, would be their cousins or people from their environment. But the minute they come in there, they went through that wave, that environment. Then it's not about the tribe. That's a perception. These people don't represent us. But it becomes to the politics as well. Now, every position, be the police, we're talking about national security, be the police and everything, go and look at the sensitive positions and see how they determine the person who holds it. And look, when we talked about this before, only people who were ignorant would deny it, to say, oh no, these people are just against government. I am too big to be against government to lie. I'm not against government, in fact. All these people are against government. Even, and the hypocrites that who have seen, some people are ignorant because they cannot see, even in plain sight. Some people were just evil because they are part of the system. They will go and lie about someone or his opposition. That's why. But they know. Because it's glaring. It's glaring. You can tell who's going to be in a position or what tribe is going to be in a position. Now, the evidence, I'm live. Okay. The evidence Sidinjai presented to you. When I said Sidinjai and others, SISDG, this is what we are doing. They were engineering. It was denied. Sidinjai said it. And as I said, I have not heard the rest of the audience, but people, someone who had it, don't want to share, say, look, this is exclusive. I don't know what's in there, and when the second one came out, it's kind of a confirming there might be something more. Saying that I withdraw my security because of it's coming from the wrong tribe. Literally. But we have seen the appointments we don't. Then, as I emphasize, this is greater than charm gen. We'll come to charm gen. But it tells us that we have failed. The reform have failed, and this should be a reason for us, citizens, concerned citizens, politicians, concerned politicians, to make sure this December we bring about change. And we make sure that change too is not for the sake of change, but to address Gambia. We can't afford this government to continue. We can't afford this system to continue under any government, any other government. That will spell disaster. third aspect of it, politicization, tribalism, the corruption. The corruption. The corruption. Just as I said, the corruption is nothing new. These crimes that Cham have committed was committed in the First Republic. I can tell you, every crime you look at Cham have done, I can tell you with evidence this one have happened. When I made my position paper to testify for the TRRC, this is what was looking at the cause of the coup. Let's look at the causes of the coup. Corruption would have played a part. Politics would have played a part. Governance, malgovernance. But they just bury that off because it does not serve their purpose. The level of corruption in the government, you expect those corruption would happen at the finance, agriculture, healthcare and everywhere else, but would not be in the army. I laughed the other day when I saw that Cyprus or which was one of the polling stations saying, oh, the army, citizens have more confidence in the army. I understand where that comes from. They don't know. Because the army is insulated. They've been babysat by the economic. They are not fully functional as an army. Because they are not seen or heard. But if you ask the soldiers, they will tell you the tribalism, the nepotism, the economic crimes will be disaster. If it comes to it, it's worse than Afghanistan. Because there's no fear or control, and the indiscipline, the sense of entitlement. You don't even know how many people the incidents are happening and they're just covering it up because the senior officers don't want to be find out. This one came out. You look at it. This one came out. But the time we were reporting some of this things, you know how many people left the army because of being disgruntled? Do you know how many disgruntled soldiers are there? Do you know how many disgruntled senior officers are there? Do you know? Do you know how many disgruntled senior officers are there for many reasons? Because they feel not treated right? Because some of them are seeing the corruption? Go and look at the wealth of some of the senior officers. The wealth from the kind of corruption they get involved in. And this is what we said about the reforms. All this would have been controlled. But again, you cannot expect a government to be as it is and the institutions under the government to work right. That's why no institution in the country works right. But the fear is that when it happens at the health, lives get lost directly. When it happens in finance, life lost indirectly. People don't see it. When it happened in education, lives got lost indirectly and orders and orders. But when it happens in the security, life lost directly and complete chaos happens. The takeover of government, civil wars, and others will happen. This is not new. Now, as I said, there are so many charms in just as they are in other institutions in the army. This is why we emphasize, but it will not happen because they protect each other. You see, the minute there was no structure, when you in governance, you have to have a vision. You have a vision. And what vision we were talking about was, oh, we have to reform. We know what we came through. We have to review everything. And some of us were very dedicated in the in the security sector. And I can tell you some of the beautiful things that happens within us. And that's why if people come out to say Gambian den bon, Gambian den li, Gambian den del, that's a lie. There are bad people among us. There are lazy people among us. There are other people among us, just as every nation. But again, I point to leadership. America is finding out. The leaders you have determines. I'll give you this example. When the Faraba incident happened, you know the Faraba incident, when the PIU went there and killed and still not reform and sold orders. Because it was the early stage. After so many individuals tried, talked to certain people, tried something, and technically even gave up. These were civilians. I'm not going to name their names because they might not like it. But I tell you, they're civilians. Mainly, there were two women in the diaspora here and one gentleman who were friends, who worked together and know each other. Later, it became three women, again women, and one gentleman. Four of them. They decided that something has to be done. They decided and looked at it and said, reforms are not happening. And they can see that this country is going into crisis. They decided to organize themselves and bring in people they trust, people they know, people they expect, that they have expertise, they have experience, they have integrity and so on, from the security sector, from former police officers who are in the diaspora here, former army officers, gendarmes and others. And they put in a group about 12, something about 12, let's just say about 12. But in everything human actually, but mainly Gambian too, you have 12 people, probably 7 will be active. And that's a good percentage. 7 active was a good percentage. And we started to brainstorm. Brainstorm. We have to do something. What can we do? We have to let these things, and let's get to it. Now, actually, this was before the Faraba incident. It was first when these things were kind of not working out. There's something that triggered them anyway. When they did that, we said, let's look at way to support. Because the reason I know it was the earliest period, it was Biden, Lawyer Dabo was External Affairs Minister around that time. Amadou Saleh was Finance Minister. It was the earliest. This was the first. There's two kind of working workshop we had. We had this voluntary. Nobody got paid. We spent our times on the phone working to come and putting together. We set up a report. Did our looked at strategies to do things and so make it whatever it is, and presented this. We had at that time the vice president who was sitting at the Security Council, and Amadou Saleh was around as the finance minister, and this was a conference happening in Norway, and we kind of arranged. It was an opportunity to have the vice president or others involved in this, and because we have sent our copies to the relevant authorities. But again, we spoke to them, talked about it, this thing, and they acknowledged it and so on. But down the line, obviously, the government changed. They were no more in government, and the people who are to follow it up never followed it up. And I can tell you, the work we presented with all their, after so many years coming with all their reports, was really all nonsense. Most of it was cut and paste from so many other areas. We know what their report was about. And it went on till, again, the Faraba incident. When the Faraba incident happened, the same people again call us together and said, oh, let's try again. Okay, now let's tell me this to the internal, about the police. Let's just target the police now. Now, let's even cut off this thing. We can just go straight to the IGP area and so on. We looked at policing. We looked at policing, looked at every aspect of it, looked at many reports and everything. Again, contacted all the relevant stakeholders, give it up to them. Some of the members of the group even became cabinet members, but nothing. I'm just saying that Gambians want change. Gambians would do something. Depends the leadership they have. If we have the wrong leadership, nothing is going to change. I'll come to the so-called who should be the CDS. I'll come to that. But we have to understand this factor of the system in operation. As I said in Dakar, Barrow got taken over. Now everything they decide will be based on whose interest it is, not the national interest. And when you talk about national security, it's about national interest. Whose interest it is. Who holds this position? Who holds that position? Depends not how qualified that person is, by looking at all the things that make that person qualified, his integrity, experience, knowledge, and everything else. No, that's not important. Does he fit in? Does he fit in? Does he fit in? Does he fit in? That's what they will tell you. And because of the main architect for Barrow's interests, it's this SISDG. So he has so much influence in determining who is where. Now, with a government that doesn't have the functional structures that counterbalances, that have check and balances, you have certain people. Yes, a national security head of the civil secret service should be very influential. This is why you have a counter, a national security advisor, that will look into what he does or what he presents. That's why the National Security Advisor's Office, people have a team that works to look at all this coming through from the police, from this to advise the president. They serve as a secretariat for intelligence and governance, for that matter. National security is governance for the president. To counter every other. These are things that happen. But if the SISDG determines who becomes the National Security Advisor, who serves, that's why you see a lot of APRC still within the system. Then you have another APRC like Sidinjai will determine orders that come in. This is what we have. That's why we have a total failed system. We have not reviewed. They went on to develop so much of documents to say, oh, we have this, we never. That's just nonsense. Read the first things first. You make things safe. Look at the threats. Get that out. Reconstitute the army for the purpose that they can be. Then look at the operationals and orders. Most of the things they adopted are not fit for purpose for the realities we have in the Gambia. But because of they are looking after themselves, that's what's going to happen. That's why you have the regimentation still. The generals and everywhere. What do? Costing the army so much in all the things. And do you know what cost you incur when they retire? Look at any country, the cost they incur to us when they retire. If we had the reform properly, at the time we proposed it, in fact, was going to be part of the engine for national development. It was going to be part of a stimulus to the economy. There's so much thinking in it. Every sector in that of that country, to rebuild the country, the people from the armed forces would have played a role. We would not need so much of them sitting in barracks. They would have been professionals, they would have been working in other areas, some of them would have been retired, going to serve different things, the economy could have been opened up. There's a way you do these things. It's been studied. What happened? Did you see that aspect of it? Still, there's no official veteran association or a movement. And part of a veteran association of a movement would have been part of the stabilizing institutions of our national security. They would have played a vital role in rehabilitating, reintegrating people that will be leaving the armed forces. There's so much that could have been done. There's no aspect of it, just continue it. Lazy, get up every day, these things. God forbid, I tell you, God forbid, there's no contingency we cannot discuss some of these things here, but I can tell you, we know. We know. If you understand what's in that country, that's no national security. And we'll come to that. Now, I want to quickly dive into some of these crimes to explain that Cham and Jeng have been involved in. But as I said, they are not alone. This is why we call for an investigation, but it would not happen. Because if you take up an investigation, the government will crumble. That's why everything will be covered up. Everything will be covered up. That's why we need a government by December, a proper composed government to start the reforms again. We will have a momentum, we will have a mandate. And this time will be done right. This is what we should be looking at. What we don't expect, what we will advocate, what we expect this government to do. Now, let me just look at some of these allegations. All those guys sending messages. I'm not good at doing two things at the same time. I'll get your messages when I come off here. Okay. It's on the sorry. Okay. Now let's first talk about this. Over a year ago, that's why I said for Cham to be forced to resign. Over a year ago, I can't remember now the dates, I followed up and I prevented, we prevented Cham would have been the Minister of Defense, I can tell you that. Due to because we leaked his appointment, we leaked we continued pounding on his relationship with the cartel. Now this is what happened then. A cartel was operating for about three years, I cannot remember, don't take the dates from me, about 3 years, operating in the Gambia, a cartel. And this cartel what they were doing was, they were bringing the drugs in a liquid form, in jerrycans. And they were stationed along the creeks of Banjul to Lamin Lodge. Some of their boats used to anchor at Lamin Lodge or Denton Brick area and so on, the creeks and so on. But they go high seas, meet up with their cargo, and they pick the cargo, come offshore. And now, if you would bring in liquid drugs into the country, means that you have a processing plant to process it into capsule or whatever it is, or powder or whatever it is, and re-export. This would make sense. Now, after so much time operating, two of the boats, these boats, you look at the powerful and so on. Someone, let's just say that within themselves, because in most times you see most of the arrests is because of they themselves just fall out. Let's say they were arrested. Some two of the speedboats went to sea, and the people who were monitoring knew what they were going for. And as they were coming back, one of the boats got intercepted. One of the boats got intercepted by the Navy. And the boat intercepted, the evidence was there. But before they got intercepted, when they knew that they were going to be intercepted, they erased their navigation chart and everything else. But they had all the equipments to stay in sea for long and all those kind of things. I mean, all the logistics to prove that these people are not into sport fishing. But again, they found evidence of jerry cans of liquid substance, which, I mean, was not petrol. Let's put it that way. It was not any other medicine but drugs. These people were arrested. One of them was a Senegalese, the other one's a Moroccan. But remember, it's two boats. The other one was not found. But the Navy intelligence knew that there was another boat, and they wanted to go and get that boat. Between the guy's surname is Job, the head of the Navy, I mean part of the Navy, I can't remember now. Surname was Job, I forgot the name, and the CDS. They prevented the Navy to go and pursue the other boat. In the investigations, it became apparent that in fact the Navy itself was operating with the cartel. One of the boats that was missing was found at the Navy station in Khartoum. Was kept there. The investigations, the person that came forward tried to negotiate and later bailed the two suspects. The two suspects were bailed before going to court for $1 million or so, or 5 million or whatever it is. I can't remember the money. Was Fariman Singati, who was a honorable consul for Hungary or some other Eastern European banana republic. He negotiated the bail, but he was negotiating first time for a release. Well, technically he did that. When they did the bail, the next day they absconded. They never, that was the arrangement. Nothing came out of it. Fariman scot free. That case was killed that way. The Senegalese absconded, the Moroccan guy absconded. Now, the almost over a dozen soldiers who worked with the Navy and State House, one of them I think was a state guard. But there's another guy from GRA, Baba Job's brother, I think is something Job, Ibrahim Job, I think, was part of this. But the cartel itself, Yusufa, what's Yusufa's surname? God, Yusufa, people know him, he's part of the cartel. Yusufa, Ibrahim Jabi and others, Fariman Saho and others, what's Yusufa Sedi? Yusufa Sedis and others, decided to abscond a little bit to stay in Dubai for a while, came back. They killed the case. The lab was never found because, but the interesting thing is when these soldiers were arrested, in our investigations, they in fact, some of them admitted getting $1 million, $2 million, $3 million in the course, that's what they claim, in the course of doing the business with the cartel, what they were paid. Some, in fact, there were others who were not arrested. We find out they were ex-Navy personnel who actually did services. They said they don't know. They did some services for the boats to move around and so on. They said, oh, we didn't know it was involved in cartel. We just called to do this and we passed our this. But the interesting thing, some of them were officers, junior officers and men. Over 12 of them were released. You should say thank you. They were released and sacked in the army without taking through trial. Because if you take them to trial, the senior ones that handles them will come out. And Mohammed Cham, and I forgot the name of this army admiral or whatever you call Navy guy, something job. There are so many. And around the same time, because when the arrests were happening, the contact said to me, bro, I found cool and fuel, because the amount of people being questioned and arrested. Around the same time, there were over six, I don't know exactly number, involved in bunkering, stealing petrol from the outsea. You know, there's a smuggling, they smuggle petrol, which one, they smuggle in poor quality petrol, two, they avoid paying tax and everything else. Over 6 of them were arrested. The things were confiscated and so on. Guess what? None of them got prosecuted. Because if you follow it, it leads to someone else. Now, all these things happen. When we blow it, again, this is why Gambians should be very careful. Again, I'll point to the registration for journalists, or especially social media sites. It's the control value. When I was reporting these cases, agitating it online, none of the mainstream papers reported it in the Gambia, because the cartel. If we say the cartel, yeah, there are some South Americans, there are some Guinea-Bissau people, but most of them are Gambian, young Gambians running businesses, Gambians who you see with long beard, with red colored tie, the same kind of Gambians. They are part of it, and they have relatives, they have contact within the media and everything else. Ultimately, I can tell you, this case of this CDS, if it was not for online, nothing will come out of it. Nothing will come out of it. It's not that the Barrow don't know or the others don't know what is going on. But to show you, these are the most serious allegations. And they were evidence. Soldiers were arrested and everything, kept for over a month. At the same time, they were considering appointing this guy as a defense minister. Now, this happened. If you know these people who are connected to the cartel, this Ibrahim Ajabi I'm talking about, during the Russian petroleum scandal, he was part of the people involved in the interest of the First Lady. He was protected interest of the First Lady, and he was, laundering money to Dubai for the Russians. And for the other scandals, gun petroleum scandals, he was part of it, representing the interest. And some of these drug cartel members have direct contacts, controlled by the treasurer. I think he's still the treasurer of NPP, who is Musa Tani. Because they give money. They give money to NPP. They give directly to senior officers, but they give directly to the NPP. Most of these cartel members, they are Gambians. We just named some of them. There's so many of them. You might even think they are. Now, with all this going on, there's no arrest, prosecution, no resignation, because they had control over it. Then if Cham tells you that he resigned, no, they lost control. That's why they move him around. And if it's continued, next minute he might be the ambassador for China. Take this from me. He might be the ambassador for China, Gambia ambassador for China, if we allow them to stay after December. Because he knows a lot. He's involved in a lot, he knows a lot. Now, let's just look at, in fact, how this story broke. Mr. Sen, a sergeant, was attached to Cham. And when Cham responded about the allegations, Cham said, oh, I spoke to the mom. Tells that they know their family. Their family. Now, look, I don't condemn people when they come out. I don't condemn. If you want to come out tomorrow, day after tomorrow, we still welcome that. But that does not insulate you from holding you accountable. What happened? They fell out. And Mr. Sen is not telling us everything he knows. He tells us what is convenient for him to share. That's why a proper investigation would have led to all this. Because Cham have been involved. The OIC projects. Oh, he talked about the coconut in OIC projects. But staff union, the payments from the OIC, some of the payments from the OIC projects for the soldiers doing the drainage systems for KMC, the KMC area and other stuff. So many. There are so many other deals that Cham was involved in. Now, they fell out because Cham accused him, according to the narrative, of taking his money. Because the guy have access to money, that much money Cham know of, or he told my guy have robbed me, my assistant, and he was detained. In the process of the detention, who came out of it? Abuja. Keep this in mind, Abuja. Again, Abuja came out, and the guy said, oh, Abuja came out, and he was let go. Then he decided he doesn't want to work with Cham anymore. You see, greedy people, whenever they have a problem, it's because of their greed. Cham is greedy, that's why he went for the boy. Now, the boy said it's his, but where does a sergeant get that amount of money? I forgot the amount was a large sum. Whereas a sergeant gets that money. Probably it's Cham's, or wherever transaction they have. Now, Jen got him out of it. Then, because of now, when you do that, when you fall out, the person tries to get back to you. And this is how he take the information he's comfortable with, and decided to share with the public in order to get back to Cham. That's nothing wrong with that. But that should not be the end of it for him. I think the entire case should be investigated to get to the bottom of all the things that have transpired. He's likely to know a lot more. Now, as I said, the allegations, one, he allegedly changed a military vehicle for a piece of land. He allegedly awarded his son a scholarship for cadet officer training, not only awarded, but enlisted and corrupted records in order to prioritize his son to get this access. He gave a high ticket to the wife. He arranged for a 1 million loan for the wife. He allegedly, thank God he doesn't have 3 wives. Imagine what would have happened. He allegedly diverted a tractor donated to the military. And again, that's more than that. He approached a business person to appoint the person a goodwill ambassador, or whatever it is, on behalf of the armed forces. The guy did just come out and say, I'm going to donate to the army. That's him. Imagine if a CDS would do this. Attract. How much this guy, you think this guy would not sell Gambia for anything? You think this guy, Gambia security matters for him? Even President Barrow's head doesn't matter to him. President Barrow might not think that way. He thinks that this guy will be loyal to him, that's a lie. I don't want to stretch it. But even the role he played in 1994 coup, he lied. He was one of the initiators. He later, come out of it. And during the TRRC, he was asked a question Oh, what do you know about Yaya Jammeh? He said he knew Yaya Jammeh in the army. That's a lie. He was living with Yaya Jammeh in Tobacco Road. He was technically, in fact, a mentor to Yaya Jammeh. How do I know this? I know a mutual friend who all were mentoring Yaya Jammeh in Tobacco. Yaya Jammeh used to look up to them. And in fact, something came on one of my programs. And I was talking about Machiavellians, the Prince. And that person contacted me. Oh, actually, he got that book from Cham. And he said, Jammeh read that book from Cham as well. That's how close they were. But he lied to say that he never knew Yaya Jammeh before. He knew Yaya Jammeh in the army, which was a lie. Tell you the person he is. He will lie about everything. But again, this is to go to a Chinese guy to say, I'll do this, give me this, give me this. But it will come through the army, then you went on to use the office again to make it your personal property. Yeah, he alleged soldiers to work on his farm in Faraba. Yeah. And he allegedly used soldiers to masoners to build a village, his house in the village. Yeah. He allegedly used position to secure personal loans from Gulf vendors. No surprise, Omar Mutar and others. He allegedly took boats and engines. Yeah. He allegedly took military food supplies. He allegedly took coconut seedlings. This one is interesting. Again, these coconut seedlings belong to the state. They are confiscated from the Jammeh proceeds, the seedlings that this thing. But interesting, he used a former colleague of ours to put the invoice. You see, this guy, how much of fraud he involved himself to give an invoice as the business sold it. That's theft. Then he gave the after getting the proceeds from the GCCA, 475,000. Who did he give 50,000 to? Abuja. You see, that's why I said Abuja now again. The person who would have advised the president now is already there. And he already failed to renew his license for the contract and so on and so forth. I can tell you there's so many that are not listed. But he's not the only one. So many others would have involved. But that's why we need the investigation. But again, it shows you how serious these crimes are. But let's come to Abuja, a national security advisor. Tells you the crisis of our national security. Abuja. In any country, if it's in China and others, it's something else. In a democracy. And if Abuja come out to say he resigned, he will not resign. He will be sacked. He will be sacked. Now, Abuja, over a year ago, we broke that story. About 50 or almost 60 Chinese and other nationals rented his property, operating it. 60 people in a it's this 60 people, almost. There's 2 platoons. You know, if those people were mercenaries, the damage they can do to a small country like Gambia. 60 people can take over many institutions, installations, and start as a war or something. But again, Chinese and orders. And I can give you additional information. The property is not isolated to him. It's not somewhere he doesn't know about. I think he even lives very close to that area. He is always in that area because his friends own properties next. That's how he got that property. His 2 friends live in the same street. In the same street. He's always with them. He goes there. That's when they stay in the evening. He would have known that this much people are living in his property. Because I know someone who have a property close by. When that person was approached, the guy was desperate to rent his property. But when he said no, because some of them wanted to move to his property. He said, I can only allow a family to use my property, because if not, they will trash everything. But for him to allow 60, 50 people, let's say 50 or 50, almost 60, with all this equipment and everything, he doesn't know that these people are involved in a crime. And he's the National Security Advisor. But before that, let's establish something. He's incompetent. I can tell you that he's incompetent. I found out that in many ways. But knowing his background, I know he's incompetent. As for the job, you see, there's something called the Peter Principles that determines people's competencies in psychology. He's incompetent. If you look at his track record, and you know the role, the TOR for National Security Advisor, he doesn't have it. His character is wrong. If I have to go to his character, I might go into his personal. I don't want to go into his personal. But his character is wrong. He's incompetent. He writes English. That's all he does. He came in because of DG SIS. Again, this is what we were avoiding. When we talk about reforms, certain position would have been vetting process to ensure the person who occupies this office. Because these positions are very sensitive. But most of the people in National Security Office are just brought in political. He came in because he's out of a job. Secondment, out of a job. Only job going is government. He was lobbying. SISDG, they get along. Some people said, oh, he's because gave him favor before, help him get to one of the UN secondment when he fell out with Jammeh or whatever it is. They had a relationship, that's it. In 2022, the time he came in, December, guess what happened? It was the so-called coup d'etat, which they wanted to implicate me for that matter. I was holiday in the Gambia. Before the holidays in the Gambia, the few months before, when Barrow went to America for the UN Assembly, I had a contact who was privy to a meeting conducted by Sankara and others about how to deal with the diaspora and whatever it is. And certain my name came up, and some other people. How they're going to deal with this, that. And you know, they have their profiling. They profile people like Sedile and others, But I was profiled differently with certain people in the diaspora. Because I had a sort of a working relationship in activism and others with these people. And their capacity and others, they feel, these people will be something else. And Kotosili Sala was part of them. I can name Kotosili and others, because he was one of the people they mentioned, or how they're going to deal with us. And now they have the perfect opportunity here. I was in the Gambia when they were already cooking up this so-called coup d'etat. Why did I say cooking up? An individual, I forgot the name of the person who got sentenced, one of the soldiers, Lance Corporal, was known to be a Walter Mitty character. He just said things. I want to do this. And there was this guy called Juf and something Wali, two intelligence officers, military intelligence or whatever, senior officers. They knew about this guy. I don't know who contracted them, and they started to micromanage this guy here. You know, the guy thinks he's all that. And this guy started to contact people. he know. Started to sell, oh, I want to, he's a lance corporal, I think, I want to coup d'etat, get these people, let's go to that Marabu, let's talk to the person. This is all they did. That's all he was doing. He had no access to weapons, no access to violence, that he could not have conducted anything. And it was at this infant stage. But the interesting point is, they thought they had an opportunity. I think this was the period, if I'm not wrong, that Modu Sabali said something about, controversial, and they wanted to use that as well. But for my presence in the Gambia, one of their dogs that lives in America knew about my presence in the Gambia, and even put out a nasty audio and said that I should be watched, I should be this, I should be this. I don't know they put him to it or not, but I know I was watched after him saying that. Luckily, I didn't spend much time in Gambia. I was out of Gambia most of it. I came back, I flew in, and I was fleeing out of Gambia. Night before I left, this is interesting. That's why I said, prematurely, they sprung this thing that they can get. I got a call with her number. Or leave the, there's something going on, I think, and they think you are part of it. Try and leave the country. Go out and something like that. I don't know the person. But the person just said it as a way of that he was doing me a favor or he's loyal to nonsense. I knew what they were up to. And because I knew that I was being watched, I was meant to meet people. These are the only people I met who were actively serving, or some of them have served, about 5 of them also. It was important to meet them. I made sure I have witnesses, and I didn't tell them that I need witnesses and so on. I created whatever it is. I controlled the environment, and I met with them, and we shared. That's all I had. I had to do that. I needed. These are people I needed to speak to, and that's all I had. And that night when they said that, the next day, I knew I had been watched. The evening, going to the airport, I started getting calls. And next minute, calls from the diaspora phone, like again. Because they have got to some of my people telling them, this. I just went straight to the airport and left. But because that person who said I was present, he gave out my Gambian number, and they went through that number and whatever it is. But when they came out, the press conference, this is when Jeng, this is why I was leading it, Jeng was appointed. They appointed Jeng to come because they need him then. Now Jeng came into the scene. Jeng's appointment was backdated for a month. We got the letter. It was backdated for a month. Why? Jeng came and they made a press conference. They said they were supported, part of the network are in the diaspora, and some of them are politicians. This is what they said. And they said, oh, these people were going to storm the Navy, they were going to storm that place. All was a lie, fabricated lie. Jeng was part of that fabrication, that lie with SISD. The people they were talking about the diaspora was the same people. I'm not going to name them, but one of them, in fact, wrote, his lawyers have to say that if he is mentioned by any decision, he was going to take legal action. That's why because they started to mention his name in their audios. This is what were their planning. The case went to the courts, as we knew. All the rest were released. The only person, in fact, I don't know how it happened on conspiracy, because he acted, he was going to marabouts or talking or inviting people. But we all know he doesn't have the capacity. He must be something wrong with him. But Jeng was part of that. What else Jan was part of? Usain Boja. As a national security advisor, he should not have even been at the press conference. But he came and lied about Usain being a rebel. Part of the rebel, part of this, part of this, part. Everything was a lie. And he knew it was a lie. He knew it was a lie. Do you know why? As a person of head of the national security, you have the secretariat. And we know people in the secretariat. We know when the information goes in. Then it's a lie. In fact, some of them fell out with him. Because they don't want to be part of that lie. He concocted because the SISD, and that's what Barrow wants, and they want to. This is the person we have. That's why he's incompetent. Even if he was to be involved, the way he got involved in all these two cases and what came out of it just shows how incompetent he is. But we move on. Then last year, he was involved in this. Again, we have to understand something. When we talk about the cartel or this organized crime, it might be a Chinese, but Chinese have a Gambian counterpart. If it's a Russian have a Gambian counterpart. If it's a South American, have a Gambian counterpart. Guinea-Bissau, they have a Gambian counterpart. Jeng is a friend to some of this. Because the guy in this last story, the guy they said is called Peter. That's his friend. That took the, they said Peter came and took the drugs from there. Is his friend. And Peter, we know, I'm not going to say the surname because the surname was not said, but I can bet on my life that I know the Peter they refer to. It's his friend. And they are always together. They are always together. Almost every evening. And all the weekends they spend it together. Now, how can he get away with that? That's why if anybody thinks that, oh, Cham has been relieved or he resigned, no. It's just because the way people came out of it. But Jeng committed these crimes. He was part of this. He knew it. Because you can't explain this to the ignorance of what was happening. Now, let's even give him benefit of that. He was ignorant of that. Now, what happens? Drug dealers, cartel members. And I have got information, in fact, whether these same people, this latest one, is involved that way. Because after the other person he rents the apartment property to, it's a cartel member going to court. Cartel member going to court. A Bissau National. He rented that property. I'm not sure whether that tenancy have finished. Now he gave it to these cartel members. How can a national security advisor always not get that right for the second time? And now this is about drugs. This is about drugs. You see, this is the crisis of our national security. As I said, this is not only them. There are so many. The army finances, that head of the finance have to be. I mean, he have done a lot with Masani Kinte and others, and with this thing. And I can tell you, some of the kickbacks will get to Barrow. It is no joke. Kickbacks will get to Barrow. A brown envelope, Barrow share. Negotiations. I tell you a negotiation. 2018-2019. Ababakar Jawara and a Senegalese guy. Ababakar had some difficulties in Dakar. And he was introduced to a Senegalese business guy. He helped him out, they sort it out. And that guy said to Ababakar, oh, in fact, I was in your country, I was trying to get contract for fertilizer supplies, but it did not work out. He said, come with me. They went to Barrow. Sat. About 5 people there. And other people that know about it. They talked about, Barrow asked how much was he going to get from it. Barrow demanded $500,000. And the guy said, if we are to give that much, we have to get a contract for 2-year consignment. We bring it together. 2 years consignment to bring it together so Barrow to have his 500,000. I have a living witness to that meeting. I have a living witness to that meeting. And I have seen documents that supported these allegations as well. This was the reason when this COVID happened, Gambia did not have problem with the fertilizer because they had 2 years supplies coming. The reason the 2 years supplies coming because of Barrow was going to get his 500,000 cut. And he negotiated it, not in the absence of, he doesn't even send intermediaries on. He does that at times. What times he goes direct? What is informal? I can tell you, there are so many, that's not the only instance, there are so many instances. The reason I know about the TK Motors, the thing they thought he can, he was surprised how I know it anyway. About that bribery, about the bosses from Social Security. The reason I know, because I know people that played part in it. That's why I knew, and I had the audacity to say he had the kickbacks given to him. And don't think charm, because they are one of the great kickbacks was vehicles for UN missions. They went and bought all UN vehicles, and when they came to inspect it, they find out they were not fit for purpose. Gambia had to procure other vehicles. Why charm was not kicked out? Why charm? But review the report was that charm provided with other business people. Provided these vehicles with and all. In fact, they were all UN. Used at the UN peacekeeping and sold as scrap. They repented and charm you, but they got their kickbacks. That's why Barrow knows about this. We cannot expect change to happen with Barrow's government. Change have to be informed, and this is why we have this discussion. What would happen? They will try people to forget about this. They will try these people to forget about this, to move on to something else, and to go through the elections, and they will try everything possible. And God forbid they manage to say, the wars will continue, and Cham might become an ambassador. This is what will happen. What should happen though? Investigations should happen and orders to follow. But the succession planning, as I said, I had people talking about candidates as CDS. As you see, at the end tail of Jawara's government, I can tell you, this situation developed. Vacancies will come up. People, political pundits can tell you the candidate to take that position. They can tell you. And when things get that bad, now, why we don't have hope? The best case scenario here, the best case scenario is even to leave it as it is for Usman Gomez to continue as the CDS. I'll give my reason why. I don't know Usman. I don't know him personally. I never spoke to him or anyone who spoke to him. I have nothing. I heard about him. I heard about him, education, this, just as many people have read about his education background or the places come from and everything. But you know the distortion in the armed forces and Gambia is, this is why when we emphasize about reforms was, there are so many Gambians, individuals, soldiers, trained, especially academically, but they have never applied themselves. And some of these people, we hold conversations with them, and you find out they might have gone to prestigious university institutions of learning, colleges, and all those kind of leading institutions. But their thought process, their analytical process, that all these things, it's not there. I'm not saying Usman, I never spoke to Usman, I don't know. We spoke to many people, I mean. And most of these people, they tell you, I went to this war college, I went to that. This is what Jammeh created. Just as many permanent secretaries, many so-called things, you talk to them, no. It takes time for someone to season in a job. It takes practical applications, not only to get the knowledge from universities. It takes regimentations. It takes time to do this. Look at their counterparts in other countries. This is a problem we have. On paper, there's so much of it. But again, another problem we have, the environment. Most of these people have been operating in this environment. It's difficult to find someone who you can vouch for to say is clean. I would not. You'll be surprised and find, oh, I did never. Just vouch for what you know. But be very careful. To survive in this environment, one way or the other, as a leader, is very difficult. Let's put it that way. I don't know anything personal he was involved in. But if he comes out and they say, but there's no one that can say, oh, I'm squeaky clean. Yeah, people that campaign for them will tell you that. But in this scenario, for him to continue, because what happens is, if anyone else comes out of any level from the bottom or from outside, it's a matter of redoing everything around. But don't be surprised if it happens. Because what would they put into consideration? Now, as I said, it was not done right before. It's difficult to redo it and do it right. Because the reason it was not done right, those reasons are still present with the administration. Political consideration. Yes, all these appointments have political considerations, but not to the childish or selfish or amateurish level of assessing the political consideration. And lobbyists who they think would represent their interests, which comes with a tag. Party tag, tribal tag. That's why I say it's better to keep him there. For now, he have no tribal tag, he have no party tag. He have no religious tag. He have the qualification in paper for Gambian things, but obviously the experience and other things are absent. But any other person will be absent. And he have been operating in the same environment for long, and most of his training is not have not been applicable. That's why these people, and you can name others, I can tell you these things will come or they'll be worse off. But because of knowing the people we are dealing with, don't be surprised. Some of the names you hear them touting would come and put there, and that would be very destructive. That would be the worst case scenario. Get someone from outside. That would be worst case scenario. Get someone from the bottom, a junior, worst case scenario, because then you have to send him out. But it does not correct it. That's why it hardly happened in a regimented system. Because once you do that, means that, oh, you brought Ben Suwareh and you took Ibrahim out for Ben Suwareh to come in. Now, why? Now that Ben's competent again. There's a reason you bring that Ben. Why? At least if you keep this person, it's continuous. You say, oh, he was the deputy, he's acted, and he is confirmed. Now, what else can be done? If you bring out someone from the outside, there will be political consideration, and hence there's a political consideration. It might lead to a personal consideration, which tribe might be seen, perceived. Actually, the person might not be tribalist, but if he belongs to certain tribes, he'll be perceived. If he becomes a Wolof, he'll be perceived. If he becomes a Fula, he'll be perceived. And if he becomes a Mandinka, it's a tokenist. That's why I live in there. And please don't say I love it for him. I don't know him. I'm not loving for anybody. But for the stability to December and probably change in coming December, and we see how we move on. That's what I say. Because why did I say this? Many people giving names. I'm not going to call those names to bring these things, no. But if you assess each one of them, and you check the person who's calling their name, either because of the tribe, because of political loyalty, or APRC, whatever it is, or because they're family. This is why they're calling these names. It's not because of they have a greater qualification, they are more mature, they have better track record, or anything else. No. They will not advance that to you. Some people, it's just ignorance. They think that, this Ben Suwareh might look good as a serious. For them, that's what they say. But they cannot justify bringing someone else from outside to occupy the office. And whoever wants to justify that, take me on any debate. And we can go on that path, and I can tell you why not. Because again, the CDS is very important. But he's a leader of an institution. There's so much things that, if you want to test this, let me give you an example. Senegal have gone without a government until I came online, and this is almost 10 days. 10 days. They have appointed prime minister without a government, no ministers. Do you know why hell did not break loose? Because they have institutions. Institutions are no more mature. An individual will not matter in this. In some countries, just appointing one person as chief of staff would mean a lot. It might just destabilize the entire country. Places like Guinea-Bissau used to happen. The CDS determines the stability of the country. For us, that's not the case yet. But we don't expect an individual passing that, this is that individual so good that he is the CDS. No. It's the governance. If Barrow continue to be the person he is and so on, this will happen. What they will expect is, for now, we are insulated by economic. For now, we are insulated by economic. Most of the preview of the CDS is kind of encamped soldiers. He have encamped soldiers. He haven't his soldiers who, when they are in operation, is minimal. It's minimal. If the test was we don't have economic in the country. Think about it. That's where the test would happen. Tells you what our national security is. No economic in the country. See what could have happened. Now, the Office of National Security serves as a counterbalance to help give capacity to the president. I would worry more who continue to occupy that office. Now it's a kabudu. I tell you that. It's a kabudu, just as the kabudu in civilians, that's the kabudu in the security sector. If you go to the police, it's a kabudu, and that kabudu have a level of tribe. I'll just call it a level of tribe. There are certain Mandinkas in there seen as marginalized. There are Fullers, and one of them seen as empowered. This is what's in the police. Even though don't see the IGP as a Mandinka. He's struggling with certain factionalism. You know, I'm not a I have nothing against him, but I can tell you that he's struggling with factionalism. He's not, as far as I know and understand, based on what I get contact with, he's not in a faction. He's not in a Mandinka faction. He's not in a Wolof faction or another faction. But some people would portray that. In fact, he is kind of captured because of he have a perceived loyalty to the president because he's a brother-in-law to the president. You see the danger of this. People have seen him if you want to criticize much about him, it's the perception that, just yesterday someone told, it's the perception that he's the, brother-in-law of the president. If he was still at immigration, people would not have mattered that much. But because he was brought in to these things as IGP, saying, oh, he's brought in there because brother-in-law of the president, not because of his Mandinka, not because of his favor Wolofs or something else. No, in fact, he's trying to walk this walk. He is kind of a tokenist, in fact, in appointment, apart from this passive loyalty to the president's family. Because all the strategic positions are occupied by something else. It's just as Yaya used to be. He can have a Serer, he can have a Wolof, he can have a Mandinka. But look at some of the positions. How it's worked out. And this is what is happening in the armed forces. People are feeling victimized, marginalized, but the worst is the corruption. There's report about introduction. Let me give you an example. I'm still looking into it. Okay, like Bakau Barracks, Yundum Barracks, or some of these barracks. About 2 years ago or a year ago, they introduced soldiers to pay rent from their rent allowance or something like that. There's a big controversy in that. They are paying according to ranks. The barracks is not kept, and orders and orders and orders. There are so much of other corruptions. There are some deductions being done, or the lack of it. And you see, let me just say, it have been allegations of corruption. It's not been very clear how this thing stands. This is the malgovernance I'm talking about. It's more of a threat than an individual. More of a threat than individual. We have an opportunity now to see this as a need to ensure we have change in December. This is where I am going to end this discussion, to say that it's an opportunity to have change in December. For now, what we expect would not happen. The investigations dip in and cleanse the place would not happen, because the army is just like other institutions. They are all affected. You remember the audit report for the Edward Francis Small Hospital? Nothing. This everybody they just continue doing what they do. All the audit reports and everything, nothing. And don't expect in the army. But the point is, as I said, in the army, in the medical sector, it's life directly. In the army, it's kind of a complete governance issue. The country might just turn on. And the reason probably we're not facing that is because of the presence of autonomy. I'm saying that doesn't guarantee everything, but I can tell you it plays a significant role in ensuring this resemblance of stability. I call it the resemblance of stability. It does prevent certain things to happen because the risks are greater with their presence here, but does not eliminate all the risks required. The thing that eliminates that would be good governance. And we can't have good governance from this government, and we are going to elections. And this is why we make sure we take all these discussions we're talking about, and it's not about individuals. Let people who are going around choosing their CDS and all those things, most of it, we know why they're doing it. But we hope continuity to happen, and they find way of insulating the systems and what. As I said, you will not find a more experienced person. What do they call experience? Long service. Some people have long service. They have no experience. Or their experience is minimal. Or their experience is even negative. What environment did they operate in? Most of them will tell you the qualifications they have. Did they ever have that command? Did they actually apply their training? No. They don't have experience. We have to be very careful about this. It's very sensitive. But again, this is we have to discuss it. These are the realities. That's where it's happened in civilian life. It's happened other places. It's dealt with different. But to say this corruption is not new. But it's getting worse. We had opportunity. 2016. We did not use that, but we can recreate that opportunity in December and bring about change. That's the only way we can sustain peace and stability in that country. Thank you very much. Good. Thank you.
Because ñoom ñëpp kooku boy bi ego noonu courant bi mënoon na ko maas mu dee yéen a ngi yaa xam machine yi jàmbur yi nit ñi liggéey ba am seen alal jënd seen fridge teg pour lu ñoo jàppalee seen njaboot bi suñ demee marché luñ fu ñoo dugal seen bagage yi suñ jëndee xar fuñ koo dugal tobaski bi ñu bari seen xar yi ñu jënda boo déggee dangaa saraxe dégg la yàlla moo ko santaane ñu saraxe waaye boo déggee dangaa saraxe danga am lu mut waaye bu fekkee yow jël nga sa salary bi nice 3 months nga dajale ko ba nga xam ne fi mu nekk am nga loo jëndee xar nga jënd xar bi ne xaaral dinaa saraxe ma génnee si ndawal luñ toogal li si des ma def ko si fridge bi next 1 month ñu am luñ lekka ndawal buñ lekka suñ kër fridge yi jàmbur yi yëpp dara tus tas waaye ñoom duñ ko yëg because ñoom ñu ngi amee ay générateur may wax nonsensical Ismaila Cissé caku bi ak xaj yeneen ñi nekk si biir nawek bi am gots bi ubbi seen gémmiñ ñi ne ñu ngee wax nit ne waaw nit dañ ko bëgg a politicize the fuck yeah we will politicize it because li lañ yaakaar wax Gambians yi of course we will politicize it soo leen bëgg ko politicize seen nawek bu yaaxul si leen koram ngeen jox Gambians yi luñ soxla boo leen defaree li ngeen war a def kenn du am lu politicize sa opponent bi lu yaaxu si yow rek lam laa waxat waaye yow su fekkee ne yow yaa ngi jox sa opponent bi lu ne gàñña pour mu wax ko of course dafa am lu mu wax da nga bëgg sa opponent bi mu tàccul la ne ok yaa ngi liggéey yéen loolu ngeen bëgg seen opponent bi mu tàccul leen ne la yéen a ngi liggéey lii sa low hanging fruit basic necessity dëkk bi mënuñ koo am ban dof mooy génn biir Europe nga ne yaa ngi dem ubbi company ubbi business Gambia te yow sa business bi du la daaneel few people ñu ko fa def ñu ngi fa toog waaye ñu ngi sofa si silence printing company yeeg ñëpp ñooñu ñëw pour def seen liggéeyal seen réew dellu dara si seen réew di xaaye ay nit yi askan bi ñoom ñoo nekk middle class bi ñi nga xam ne ñoo hold Gambia's economy because yéen upper class bi higher class bi da ngeen def seen boppa benn clique benn gang kenn du bokka kenn du dugga kenn du waaj génna ok te ñeen yi 1% yi dëkk bi ngeen waaye 90% of Gambia maybe 50% bi ñoo war a nekk middle class bi 40% bi nekk si poverty rate bi 40% bi dafa war a grow middle class dafa war a grow génnee from the poverty nit ñi di jógee from poverty dem si middle class bi waaye yéen da ngeen nekk di push the middle class back to poverty lii ba kañ lii lañ yaaga wax Gambien si ñaata millions $500 million in 5 years moo dugga si biir lii bi 2019 ba 2024 si government bi bala leen ma ngeen share ma alaaji bala leen ma ngeen share ma guys du ma fi yaaga that much bala leen ma ngeen dugala ma ko seen page yi ak si groupe bi Gambia Youth and Women Forum xam naa dinañ ut time ñu ñëw Facebook ñu jaakaar lool face à face taal suñ caméra yi toog ak nit yi maa ngi xaw a busy moo tax maam li sa tamit mu ngi busy xadi moom mu ngi feebaroon you know waaye demoon nañ sax TikTok barki démba dangaa wax ba sa TikTok barki dee ma foog naa 10 hours lañ fa am xaw ma 9 hours dangaa wax ba sa put bi di métti lii lañ doon wax Gambian si and hear me out. I've been saying this over and over. How you do one thing in your life is how you do everything. Ni nga balee sa cabinet, nun nga balee sa saal, nun nga balee sa waañ, nun nga balee sa ita. Bu dee yow boo balee dangaa dugal si rondal bi. Foo balee dangaa dugal si ron. Doo balee mu set. How you do one thing in your life is how you do everything. Soo nekkee nit ku déggu sooy déggu si biir kër dangaa déggu si office dangaa déggu ak sa xarit dangaa déggu fu nekk bu fekkee yow nitu njuuj njaaj nga foo dugga njuuj njaaj nga fa dee def because you are who you are. You cannot change who you are. Te loolu la government bi nekk di ñu wan. Government bi the way they are dealing with this electricity problem is the same way they deal with every institution in that country. Góor bi sàcca CDS ki nga xam ne moo doon def la bu lantal di njuuj njaaj CDS bi ni moo njuuj njaajee noonu la Adama Barrow di njuuj njaajee noonu la ministre yi di njuuj njaajee yéen you guys wanna tell me ne CDS bi moo gën a njuuj njaaj Amat Bah. You guys wanna tell me that? No. The only reason why ngeen gis njuuj njaaji CDS because moom lañ out moom lañ whistle blow bi wax affaire am waaye tey ku waroon a jël Amat Bah nga ne danga ko commission wala danga ko audit. Ibrahima Sira the same thing. Momodou Sabally the same thing. Adama Barrow Fatoumata Bah Barrow seen gang bi yëpp ku leen bëggoon a audit tey labulanta bi ngeen a gis si moom mooy ëppa bu CDS bi def because ñoom ñoo ko ëppale kaddu si réew mi is about kan moo am kaddu si réew mi ku gën a am kaddu rek yaay gën a mun a njuuj njaay yaay gën a mun a tappale and you will get away with it. It's very simple. Very simple. ñaata nit ñoom la seen frige yi yaaxu comment boo dem yaa ngi gis askan wi ñu ngi wax ne seen frige dafa yaaxu lan moo ko yaaxa electricity on and off barki démb bi ñu nekkee si live fi TikTok bi am na ku éeg ñuy wax bés kanam mu ne xay courant am na si diggante bi si biir 2 hours ba 1 hour bi ñoo wax ak moom noonu xam nga 45 minutes rek mu yuuxuwaat wooy gaa yi yóbbuwaat nañ courant bi imagine na loolu ban machine moo si mën a ron si loolu incompetent ba bugg a dee thank you Alaaji incompetent ba bugg a dee yéen ngeen ne dëkk bi dina dem dëkk bi ni moo demee ban investor bu am fula ak fayda mooy ñëw si dëkk boobu mu toog fa moo dan 2-3 years su nekkee nekkul Gambian xanaa su nekkee Gambian because established na am na jabar am na family xale yaa ngee dem school mbookaam yaa ngi fa xëy na moo tax du jóg enu bagage sami génn waaye bu fekkee foreigner la koo xam ne dafa jógee dëkka waxuma foreigner boo xam ne dafa ñëw ut si yéen de koo xam ne dafa ñëw invest dëkk bi expand business am kooku benn 2 years less than 2 years or 12 months mu enu bagage sami dem because it's not sustainable courant di dem on and off yéen a ngi noonu yéen a ngi jël 33% xaw ma 30% ngeen naa nekk di jël si tax pour ñu dee fay courant bi correct leen ma if I'm wrong because dafa mel ni loolu laa dégg gars yi di wax gars yi ñu ngee fay on top of that luñ jënee courant nga jëlati si leneen nga kot ko nga ne loolu tax la yéen amuleen enough capacity why don't you be honest with Gambians yéen da ngeen dem ngeen extend mbir mi ngeen ne da ngeen naa def courant si kaw gi ok léegi yéen a ngi xëcc courant bi yëpp si kaw bi dégg la kaw bi tam war nañoo am courant waaye léegi yow sa city bi fi nga xam ne foofu la middle class bi bari kaw gi seen doom yi suñ demee ba màgga foofu la ñoo ñëw jànge foofu la ñoo ñëw liggéeyee si foofu la middle class bi nekka nga jël électricité bi yëpp nga yóbbu ko because foog naa da nga mere da nga Adama Barrow ak government bi dañ mere ñi nekk si city bi dañ leen mere because xam ne duñ am seen carte bi xam ne doo leen jox seen carte bi in 2026 December bi they know that so lan la gars yi nekk di def di yóbbu courant bi si village bi pour ñu mbaamal ñooñu nax leen ne la gis nga isil na leen courant léegi yéen a ngee gis taalatu leen sonel amatu leen kerosene so léegi yéen a ngee gis kon sànnil leen ñu because amul leen enough capacity pour ngeen jox ñëpp courant fi ngeen stretch seen lampa yëpp amu leen ko and what a shame yéen a ngi am ay solar light fu nekk naaj bi mu ngee ñëw 24/7 si dëkk boobu noonu xanaa benn 6 hours la naaj bi di ñëw 16 hours bi yëpp lifin baa koo ñëw naaj bi nga koy ñëw 16 to 18 hours or 12 hours minimum yéen a ngi am naaj waaye for some reason seen solar lights yi maa ngi ko gis Watson Gambia yëpp a ngi ñëf maamam dem off because yéen xamuleen lan mooy ngeen service dara yéen mënu la ñoo maintain nothing yéen li ngeen xam rek mooy lunch naka la ko dee ooyee sax seen stone yi ñee teg noonu stone yooyu la Gambien si war a jël jam leen ko ba ngeen toskare xaj yi ngeen doon foundation stone, everything foundation stone, launching this foundation stone, but you don't know how to maintain nada, zero. Dégg naa nawet seen lifin yi naka la tuddaat seen bulong yi lañ ko dee ooyee xaw ma seen machine yi yëpp a ngi xuur xoomaat ah tabax yaa ngi dilapidated dëkk bi yëpp a ngi yàqu 1 2 3 ngeen dem rekon ngeen tegal ñu tali yoo xam ne du gisu courant tali yoo xam ne ndawali nit yi duñ ko fa tegee du tax ndawali frozen ah tali nit mun na see duga dinda tali yoo xam ne tamit loon la ñun ñoo ko fay di next 50 years ah kon yoon ban développement ngeen defal Gambien si yéen askan bi grants yi duga foofu noonu ana projet gi naka OMG xaw ma naka ana projet boobu nga xam ne World Bank Islamic Bank ak banki àdduna bi yëpp a si dugal seen xaalis over 800 and something million dollars almost 1 billion ñu ne Guinée Sénégal Gambia te projet bi depuis 2015 lañ ko di xaw ma 2017 lañ ko approve ana projet boobu ñu ngi ko put on hold because dañ am discrepancy dañ am ay wax ñu ko put on hold li yaaxu biir Gambia ak lu gaa yi labulante dafa bari ana suñ diw bi ñu waxoon ne am nañ bunta pour diw bi ba compagnie yooyu jógee woon Sénégal ñëw Gambia nañ ko fa ñàkk di génn si investment yi Sénégal bi ñëw bu Gambia bi ana loolu kenn waxatu ko da ngeen external ñooñu pour ñu dig diw pour ñu ut diw si Gambia ok da ngeen ko external until foog naa last year septembre la woon septembre bu passé na so léegi lan mooy update bi pour askan bi loolu kenn waxu ko because problème yi ak kaa yi débat yi Gambia yi ñoo bari one after the other Africa dañ torox dañ sonna xoolal maa ngi gis Guinée xooleen Guinée seen président bi mu ne dafa celebrate xaw ma Mayamba la tudda xaw ma Muyamba ñaata fan ak xaftaanam bu rëy gaa yaa ngi sukum man xaw ma lan moo jot African leaders yi nii nga xool nataal yi jógee Guinée ak vidéo yi am na ko ñëw suma comment si naan ma AI la man ma dem Guinée ma xam Guinée ñoom seen tali yi noonu la mel seen tali yi dañ tali yëpp a toskare tali yëpp a bon dañoo isi projet tali yoo xam ne benn nawet du ko mun a sustain wan nawet na ñëw rek tali yëpp xaapati ko toj def ay pax sooy duga si moto yi di dawal si boor yooyu sa yuur bi dafa mel ni luy rot sa butit yi mel ni luy génna the same nonsense mooy nekk di am Gambia right now may leen Adama Barrow tali yi mu defar ni next year waxtu bi yëpp ay ñëf maamam yàqu because yëpp dañ jël xaalis bi ñu compa ko duga ko seen poos yi nothing is standard nothing xooleen courant bi Gambia yëpp lëndëm askan bi yëpp nekk si darkness korite lu em ni tobaski nit ñi amuñ courant seen dëkk bi te yéen ku dem seen kër yi yéen a ngi am courant because yéen a ngi teg seen générateur may wax ngeen naa wax nonsense naa ñu gaa lifin bi la lii bi la oil bi la ngeen naa wax nonsense naan essence bu seer bi la woo bi la doo leen bàyyi fen lan moo tax yeneen dëkk yi ñu am courant lan moo tax Sénégal na ñàkk a am courant ngeen seen nit ñi duñ jóg protest Sénégal na ñàkk a am courant ngeen seen nit ñi du jóg protest yéen da ngeen incompetent ngeen ubbi seen gémmiñ ñi naan waaw nit dañ ko bëgg a politicize ñora di ba bëgg a dee dof tooy yéen ñëpp a em NPP dafa mel ni comme dañ leen génneel sarax they cannot do anything right xanaa kon ngeen war a am ngor ngeen xam ne yàlla wàcce na si yéen pare na si yéen lu em ñu tobaski Gambie yëpp di jooy dem leen TikTok xale yëpp a ngee complain xale yaa ngi leen a bulli di leen saaga xale yi dañ leen jéppi fi mu nekk nii xale yëpp a leen jéppi jamono bi suñ jógee ngeen ne da ngeen a mbaamal nit yi di wane corruption amut yéen ngeen corrupt seen jabar yi corrupt seen àndandoor yi corrupt seen xarit yi corrupt yéen ñëpp ngeen ànda di corrupt di dem mooy li ma wax ministre lifin bi CDS bi corruption biñ ko wane scandale am bi imaginal tey ku waroon a génnee scandale yi kii nii bi nu mu tuddaati sax Amat Bah Moussa Dramé Adama Barrow Ibrahima Silla ñii ku waroon a génnee seen bank account alal biñ si nekk di ko si dugal ñu wax ñu fan lañ dugal jëlee alal bi ñoom ñëpp every single time ñu ngi dugal alal si seen bank account yi fan lañ ko dee jëlee loolu nekkut the pure definition of corruption ah yow ñu teg la si boppi nguur nga war a liggéey deliver reform institutions yi defuloo fa dara lu dul wax ju rëy 1 2 3 ngeen nga paaral si Facebook bi ne yéen a ngi binda di defante ak askan bi Ismaila Cissé moom caku bu xonxa boobu noonu ubbi gémmiñam bi mu ne dafa am lu moo wax askan bi ñàkk a jom ba bugga dee yéen doo leen ay nit sax doo leen amu leen gor sax yéen amu leen dara loo lañ wax Gambian population bi xanaa ñu nekk si village bi ñoom nga naa mbaamal te ñooñu tam ñu ngi eew 2026 bi incha allah rabi Gambian si yëpp ñoo war a takku nekk benn ñu ñafe génne kii nii 10 years of nothingness ngeen ñu isil 10 years of zero backwardsness bad security bad health care education bi mu ngi gën a dellu gannaaw nawekaa ngi gën a dilapidated port bi jaay ngeen ko yéen lan ngeen ñu defal si 10 years bi yéen you guys have been a complete liability to Gambians the last 10 years because alal bu duka si biir réew moomu ba pare ngeen bàyyee ñu bor bu dul jeex $1 billion worth of loan ngeen bàyyee ñu ko suñ tur bi suñ baat bi ñun doomi Gambians. That's why I can continue to say this government is a liability to Gambia. Complete liability to Gambia. At least lu mu bon Macky Sall dëgg la rey na ay nit waaye before mu egga foofu ba nit ñi xam nu mu bonee ak nu mu soxoree liggéeyoon na biir Sénégal ba léegi Sénégalais dañ am ngor ak fayda ñu ne ko abal ñu doy na waaye Adama Barrow lan la liggéey Gambia dama bëgg nit ñi yéen ngeen wax ma Adama Barrow lan la liggéey ban hospital ngeen gis ñu reform ko ñu bil ko defar ko biir Gambia ban hospital moo nekk standard boo xam ne yow soo fa demee di nga feel like ne yow soo fi génnee you'll be okay public hospital même private hospital yi sax most of them are not standard because ude num la gisee da la walee ah courant bi deelu gannaaw fii naka la foofu tuddaati sax fii lii bi nekka waaye gamtel gën a deelu gannaaw bañ daaxa ay nit foofu which institution is doing okay in the Gambia ban institution xanaa road institution bi and it's not doing well because you left us with you're gonna leave us with a bunch of loans to pay so tell me guys which institution is doing better in the Gambia ban institution moo ñëw mu liggéey loolu lay laajte Gambia you guys have spent hundreds of millions and millions and billions of dollars towards these ministers their salary and the president what have they given us in return man loolu lay laaj Gambian si koy fay kañ na la wax lum la defal lan la ñu de gaay defal in the last 10 years 10 years yoo xam ne dañ gën a deelu gannaaw tey la security Gambia bi gën a bon xale yi tey lañ gën a mun a nekk si drogue bi xale yi tey lañ gën a mun a dem back way tey la xale yi gën a fail si education bi tey la gaay yi gën a mun a ñàkk a binda wala wax sentence bu correct tey la nit mun a gën a dem lopitaan doo am garab ñi am doom jigéen yi am doom tey lañ gën a mun a dee si lopitaan yi so what have they done for us the last 10 years this is my question because nit ki soo ko fay pour mu liggéeyal la dafa am lu mu la war a wan excuse upon excuse jël nguur gi def ko nguuri mu xat ñora di ba bu ko dee may wax ñu ne naka Adama Barrow leen jël flyam defar flyer boo xam ne poster boo xam ne Talib Ben Suda ñoom UMC seen kola yi leen jël how stupid are you guys mu ngi mel ni tey ma dem jël brand ni ma nekk fii Walmart dem jël brand ni Target yëpp teg ko Walmart loolu moom mi ne Walmart ñu ngi wax ne dem leen Target ngeen shoppi fa déggu leen ma de yéen da ngeen stupid wéru leen mooy li ma wax ni ngeen defee one thing noonu ngeen defee everything ay muqat ngeen dajale kenn xamut li ngeen a liggéey xamu leen xamaatu leen parewu leen a xam xamu leen parewu leen a xam ku xamut xamadi rey la xamadi la noo rey fi mu nekk nii ngeen jël kola UMC yi tegal ko baro kolaam yi di gris ñii ñoo fi nekk the first political movement ñoo xam ne ñoo fi teg kola yi ba ñëpp xamee ko because gëmu leen seen boppa kii moo yóbbu seen furu faara bi ngeen confuse ba jël kola yi jaxase ko how stupid is that kan moo nekk behind that ngeen jël ko di ko share stupidity raw na loolu tey Apple tey Apple Samsung dina jël kola Apple yi mu dem def ko Samsung wala mu jël seen symbole yeeg seen logo yi def ko fa loolu is part of your identity seen branding la waaye yéen seen gré boobu dafa pondax ba gëmatu leen ko ni ngeen a stupide ba bugga dee xamu leen dara ba dara boo waroo jee waaye again substance bi foofu mooy lan how you do one thing is how you do everything xuusmaa ñàppa ngeen xam ni ngeen a xuusmaa ñàppa seen political party bi noonu ngeen xuusmaa ñàppa government bi every institution noonu ngeen ko xuusmaa ñàppa nothing, not a single institution has been reformed properly. Not a single institution have delivered changes or reforms you mun a gis yu tangible yoo xam ne mu ngi isi benefit to the askan. Not a single institution. tey la security sector bi gën a xala ko army bi tey lañ gën a torox tey lañ gën a sonna maa ngi dégg ñu ngi wax ne kooku daf leen dee fay rent daf leen dee fayeeku rent seen CDF daf leen daan fayeeku rent yéen army bi imagine that CDS bi yooyu yaa daaxoon booy boobu noonu ku ñoo ooyee Ibrahima last year du yaa ko daaxoon Ibrahima mooy ku jugoon di wax ne ndëkk bi naka la métti ngeen daaxa ko aha moo la dal tey turki jam léegi-léeg mu léet nag dañuy wax ne déwét ba xaw ma ren ba déwét soo ko gisutee defut la ko léegi-léeg yàlla daf ko isi 2 years after wala 15 months after li nga def waa jooju Ibrahima boobu aha boobu moo la dal tey léegi yow tam jobless nga joxuloo ko sovereign packet joxuloo ko dara retirement am joxuloo ko dara da ngeen ko daaxa noonu rek because dafa jóg téye téléphone wax dëkk bi nu métti ni ngeen a xalaku yéen waaye 2026 bii Gambien si suñ jógutee ñu génnee fi Adama Barrow ak nguuram gi billahi wal kitaab gis ngeen Guinée Conakry nu mu xalako lu gën a xalaku loolu mooy nekk si Gambia nañ leen dem rek gis ngeen Guinée Bissau Guinée Conakry nu mel si cité bi noonu ah dilapidated dëkk bi yëpp nekk ko mbalit lu raw loolu moo ñoo dal si suñ bàyyi Adama Barrow ak gouvernement bi si suñ dëkk bi añ leen ñu jóg ñu génnee fi Adama Barrow tey la June 4 July August September October November December mutu sax 5 months moo des 5 months moo fi des pour ñu génnee fi Adama Barrow mutu 6 months de because December 5th la election bi so doo mun a compter December yëpp compter bi November bi la moo am so 5 months moo des pour election mu jot 5 months la 5 months fi mu nekk nii weer bu nekk war nañoo count down 5 months war nañoo count down 5 months 28 days 5 months 27 days 5 months 26 days beneen ba 4 months 4 months 25 days 26 25 24 ba eggat 3 months countdown bi lañ war a commencé léegi xamal askan bi ne suñ jógutee ñu génnee fi xaj yii ñi nga xam ne seen boppa lañ fi nekkal every single thing they do and say is pour ñu entrench seen boppa ñu benefit seen boppa ak seen family they are not here for Gambians if they were here for Gambians a lot of reforms would have been done the last 10 years people died people fought people sacrificed people exiled pour ñu am changes in 2015 but up to now benn changes amut si biir dëkk boobu noonu what a shame 10 years later, we are still in the same mess. We are actually worse off today than 10 years ago. Hana human rights bi rek. Te nekkul Adama Barrow moo ñu ko jox parce que nit ñaa taxaw ne ko gatsa du fi am. Koo fi xuri mu xuri la du fi am. waaye xam ngeen ne Adama Barrow suñ ko toogoon ñu seetaan ko 2 years ago la doon commencé injustice affaire against human rights. daf ko dee def sax daf du dee dem rek. xoolal kii boy bi Ousseynou ñu ngi noonu di di ko Ousseynou Bojang ñu ngi noonu di ko dili dalee ba léegi ñu ngi ko yóbbuwaat koot ñu ne dañoo appel case bi dem leen ngeen uti kan moo rey cops yooyu because yéen a rey cops yéen xam ngeen kan moo rey cops xam ngeen ko Sidi Ndiaye xam na kan a rey cops maa ko war isil sama nal ma fii yow xam nga ko dem leen ngeen uyu lan la leen Lamin Jéeda ba wax ni ngeen a bon xalaku ba bugga dee yéen nguur daf leen jaral lu nekk daf leen jaral sa bakken aleel daf leen jaral lu nekk yéen because it's not just about nguur it's about aleel bi si bi ngeen toog ak power bi ngeen toog ni ngeen a bon waaye soo leen mayutee Gambien si luñ bugga yéen a ngi gën a uñu seen boppa courant bi ni mu demee nii yéen a ngi wax ne political parties yi ñu ngi ko politicize of course ñoo tey politicize ko activists yeeg political party yëpp ñoo tey politicize ko because this is what we've been telling Gambians ne da ngeen incompetent how you do one thing is how you do everything the fact ne yéen mun nañoo régler courant bi mun nañoo régler benn institution foofu noonu defal lañu benn reforms dara ceeñut Gambia so therefore Gambian bi am na every right pour mu politicize every incompetence li ngeen def foofu noonu every shortcoming bi ngeen a am si dëkk bi am nañ right pour politicize ko pour expose seen ndey ngeen génn a dëkk bi abal askan bi loo leen bëgga ñu tàccul leen waaw give them excuse oh ok essence xeex woo moo am yéen a mun a ñeme yàlla bu doon woo bi moo tax nit ñi amuñ courant xanaa ni konte Sénégal amuñ courant ah du Sénégal a ngi noonu am seen courant bi yéen da ngeen amul enough capacity bu luy jox nit ñi courant ngeen jël alal bi yëpp ba pare loola ñoo nekk di depend si import ah when yéen a ngi amoon so much money so much funding am na funding boo xam ne over 200 million euro ñu ne leen ngeen make sure ne 1000 schools ak 100 hospitals dañoo am electricity 24/7 unlimited access to electricity that funding the due date was 2025. Where are the 1000 schools and 100 hospitals that have unlimited lights, Quran, in that country? Wahalan mako Gambia. Fan la xaalis bi duga. Because you cannot tell me you didn't receive the funding. Because that's why you received the funding. That's why the projection year more on 2025. That was last year. So ko compté yep in total ñun luñ jot a compté because doo am jot pour nga xool yëpp waaye the little we were able to dig into from the internet was $444 million at lu tege in 5 years moom la gars yi receive si funding si grants pour régler dëkk bi electricity boo gis ñu ne la free access unlimited access to electricity by 2025 by 2024 grants yëpp loolu la doon wax fan la xaalis si duga man loolu lay laaj Gambian si fan la xaalis si duga ba ñun ñu war a nekk di rely si di import import ñun suñ énergie nga xool solar system yi nga xool Gambia naaj yi moo produce because again how they do one thing is how they do everything. They don't even have the right people at the jobs. They don't have the right ministers at any sector. Almost every minister, few ministers ñoo nekk fi ñu war a nekk. Ana Ibrahima Sila, infrastructure, from journalists, writing stories, tas xibaar, askan bi, maasisi, agitate. loolu mooy journalist dëgga nga tell stories waaye Ibrahima Sila infrastructure la dem xanaa bu demee infrastructure la bulante seen alal bi génn te wax ñu ay story xëy na loolu moo tax ñu teg ko fa Amat Bah fu mu nekk léegi Amat Bah fu mu nekk guys Amat Bah fu mu nekk très fële la nekkoon tourisme Amat Bah fu mu nekk léegi Amat Bah lu mu xam laa xamut Amat Bah lu mu xam Amat Bah dégg naa suy wax tufli la muy def ba sa kanam gi yëpp dafay tooy dina la tuflee Amat Bah lu mu xam laa lay laajte Amat Bah lu mu xam Amat Bah ban ministre la mun a yóbbu si kanam Gambia ali nga ñaa yele Amat Bah ban ministre Let me cry. Let me laugh so I don't cry. Make a laugh so I no be cry. Amat Ba ban ministry la muna yu nga am kii Sabally waa ji ki nekkoon fii xaw ma arène la woon xaw ma LVN xaw ma ban la si moo nekk agriculture. You see how dumb these people are? You see how stupid these people are? ñun dof yi ñoo yóbbu suñu dëkk bi but again fii laay tëjee wax bi because dama dem pare pour dem liggéey fii laay tëjee wax bi but then again who is our president? It's Adama Barrow. He doesn't know how to read. Adama Barrow bet you doesn't know how to write. Adama Barrow doesn't know how to articulate himself properly in any language now, whether Mandinka, Olaf, or English. Okay? All Adama Barrow knows is nakala mo entraîner bopam pour mu yaga fa ci biir nguur gi. He's our president at the end of the day. Moom lañ wax moom moo ñoo lead, moom mooy xool gaay, moom mooy hire di fire. He is our president de. Barrow. What does Barrow know? Lan la Barrow xam? Gambia. Nga Roma ñu am xam-xam yépp ñu jàng ñi ñépp. Barrow lañ jox mu nekk suñu président bi. So what do we expect? It's the same nonsense. Who can Barrow hold accountable? Barrow said audit report is a mere opinion. Barrow munta read. Barrow munta comprehend. So léegi Barrow kan la ma hold accountable? Xanaa wax ji moo bari rek comme liñ def CDS bi wax ji bari mu call CDS bi ne ko léegi da ngaa lifin su yaagee su wax ji lii ma yóbbu la beneen place because xaritam la da ngaa resign moom wax ji na bari rek moom loolu la mun a figure out waaye pour moom mu xoolal boppam ne lii de moom lii problème la lii war nañ see def solution. Barrow cannot. I'm sorry xeebuma ko waaye again he is our president. He is the one ki nga xam ne moom lañ bugga pour mu surround boppam with good people mu ñu génne ñu si tuuti duna bu ñu nekka moom fu ma xamam em ak fu bugga em ak fu éeneem em ñun tam suñ am suñ man as a nation fa la muy em. There's nothing else we can do again because surrounded boppam sax ak ñu bugga ak ñu competent ñi nga xam ne dañ genuine. No, everybody ñu surround Barrow is self interest moo yaa dëkk bi. 90% of Gambians ngeen jégal ma it's about self interest. Very few people ñooy toog teg seen bakken teg seen boppa teg seen lii ne pour askan bi la. Very few people. maa ngi dégga suma broda bi Stone Sakul yaa ngee wax waaye ñemewuloo laal mbir mi de. Stone de laal mbir mi de koo laal waaw nga ne buñ fi tegee Trump wala buñ fi tegee Obama or whoever du tax changes am système bi moo war a change. Kan moo war a change système bi du topp rek change de la naa bàyyi xel ne lépp loolu noo wax te su ma demee si TikTok bi daa wax lii na si TikTok bi nga ne nekk doo dégga bii but I hope maybe nit ñi dinañ ko dogal yóbbul la ko. Gis nga fii looy laam-laamee nit ñi dañ ko dee gis dañ ko dee xam lu leer laa la wax dégg naa sa wax bi waaye nanguloo laal mbir mi de waaw dangaa laal ba si kanam yuutoon ñëwaat jayu miir delluwaat waaw wiri jaari ndaar système nga ne système bi lañ war a change dëgg la système lañ war a change waaye kuy change système bi kiy change système bi su fekkee moo gën a dëgga système bi kooku dina mën a gis système bu dëgga pour change ko du ko gis. Before system change foog nga am leadership bi mooy mën a change système bi. Leadership bi foofu la nit ñëpp di look up to ne leadership bi nii la taxawee lii mooy culture bi nii lam dee daxalee lii mooy principle sam lii mooy foundation am su ma abided by daf maa daaxa daf maa hold into account léegi xaaral man tam ma def ñu système bi defee ñun ñu nekk si Amérique bi wala si West bi dañ ñëw fekk système bu taxaw waaye système bi ñun nit nekkul ne nit yi ñoo ko defar leadership bi ñoo defar système bi bu leadership defaree système yow nga ñëw dangaa follow ñun amuñ choice ñun Africa lañ jógee suñ ñëwoon suñu neexoon mun na ñëw def comme Africa ku lekk saani ku naan saani waaye système moo am hold nit ñi accountable léegi nit ñi tam mun a hold go by système bi li mu wax waaye doo leen taxaw rek ne waaw système bi fekk defaruñ ko système bi ñëppal yi nangam may leen ñu jaama fii kenn mënatu fee ndax kenn mbir mi danga koo ñemee wala nga bàyyi ko fi mu nekk nii li ñoo wax mooy ma ñoo bàyyi leen li ñoo wax mooy ku bugga bu dee supporter nga Barrow nga NPP ñun amuñoo ak yéen benn wax ay n'importe qui yu taxaw di support Barrow amu problème waaye man suma wax bi dafa réer képp koo xam ne yow danga daan toog ñun ñu xeex Yaya Jammeh pour génne ko fa xam naa Stone bokkuloo woon si ñun waaye damaa wax rek ngeen ñëw am kaddu ngeen ne di ngeen mbaamal askan bi dinañ ko gatsa ak yéen ba géej gi fer lu leer leen wax fii kenn du fi mbaamal kenn dangeen naa jël seen enveloppe yi ngeen tëj seen gémmiñ ñi ne muut noppi amuñu ak yéen problème waaw waaye ngeen ñëw ngeen ne dangeen naa lal di laali lu nekkul dëgga laali lu nekk fen wala laali lu nekk dëgga lal fa lu nekk fen ñu lal ko seen lu bon yi mu jeex tàkk loolu rek moo fi nekk gatsa 5 months a des maa ngi leen daa bàyyi yéen mi nga xam ne yéen a mujjee join ngeen share ñu live bi xam naa dinañ dem TikTok after incha allah ma ne woon ma ñëw rek wax li nga xam ne moom laa gis si weekend bi it's very sad électricité bi nga xam ne depuis Tabaski ba tey nit ñi mënuñoo am courant yàlla bul am koo xam ne mu ngi laa liggéeyal from Gambia duñ mën a liggéey dara very sad mun ngaa xaaya ñoo xam ne ñu ngi liggéey from yeneen dëkka Nigeria Kenya doo musa am problème ak ñoom lu ñu war a liggéey dinañ ko liggéey ba mut because ñu ngi am courant doo dégg kenn mu ne la aw ma data aw ma courant aw ma lii waaye boo xaayee xale bu nekk Gambia benn yoon nga koo gis si week bi wala ñaari yoon nga koo dégg si week bi because lan la amut courant amut batterie it's very sad kooku su yàggee nooy def danga koo teg nga dem uti keneen koo xam ne mu ngi beneen dëkka because yow sa liggéey bi tam doo bëgg mu yaaxu léegi ngeen ne Gambia dinañ mun a jàppale xale yi pour ñu dem si kanam ah même bu fekkee ñaari nit ñetti nit sax nga fa xaayee sax ah it's very pathetic very sad léegi imaginal ñoom ñu nekk foofu amee seen compagnie si ground bi naka la compagnie di ronee laa xamul especially small business yi ah waa xaaral ma bàyyi leen man maa ngi am phone calls ba si kanam incha allah thank you guys